Hi, I'm Jack Canfield, and welcome back to Hollywood Live. My next guest is Mark Kemsley, who is the founder of the Kemsley Academy, which is doing really interesting work bringing Chinese students to America or helping students that come to America really do well in their educational experiences here in the private schools. So I'm really excited to have you here, and welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jack.
I think you're doing really interesting work, fascinating. So tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your work.
Okay, well, when I was at university, I met and married a wonderful lady from Taiwan. Then we lived in Taiwan and Hong Kong and mainland China for about 20 years. We raised our family there. In 2006, we moved back to the States, and that happened to be just the time when the American government started to allow Chinese students to go to high school in the States before they could only go to college or get advanced degrees here. So we started to help Chinese students to get into the schools and manage them a bit. And we found the demand just grew and grew every year. It's just incredible how fast it was spreading that Chinese kids could come to high school in America. So we didn't have the facility for it. We went and we bought a 15-acre campus in Massachusetts. And we were able to use it to train the students and also as sort of a home base for them, so that they have a place to come during holidays and things like that. So that's the gist of what we do.
So what was the moment, there has to be a defining moment that took you from what you were doing into your current work. What was that moment you decided, okay, I'm going to do this, and why?
Oh, there most certainly is such a moment. You know, I worked originally in Asia, running the Asian operations of an American corporation. And later I worked as a consultant. I helped the many companies, Western companies from Europe and the United States, to open up their businesses in China. For example, I helped Yale Security Products to form a joint venture with AIG and with Guli Lock in Guangdong province to form what is now the biggest lock company in China. But what really made the difference was in the year 2000. I helped a company that did English language training to establish and build their business in China. I spent a couple years working with it. They are now the most prominent, the biggest company in China for teaching English language to adults. I figured out something that I liked a lot more, helping somebody do something in his life, such as learn English, a lot more than, say, going and selling a door closer and a Nexus device to a construction project somewhere. It just meant a lot more to me. And then I found that it meant even more to work with children in education. So during the summer times, we would go and find all these schools that had empty campuses because it was summer vacation. We would rent the campuses, we would bring in teachers from the US and put on summer schools in English language for the kids. And so I've sort of been working with young people since then and haven't looked back.
Very good. So just give me a brief sense. You bring them over to the United States, and then what happens?
Okay, well, the first thing we need to do is get to know the kids so that we can determine what type of boarding school would be most appropriate for them. It's kind of difficult to find a position for them in this boarding schools because there's such huge competition from China. So many kids who want to come to the US to study right now. So we work with them to find the right school and get them into the school, and then we manage them because it's almost impossible for the boarding schools to communicate with the parents in China. Most of them don't speak English at all.
Right.
And so we're sort of a bridge to help communicate with them, and we manage the daily affairs of the kids here in the schools.
So when these kids are coming over, I imagine it's not just the easiest thing in the world to find a place for them. What's the advantage of the school taking in these students?
The schools all sort of want to have international populations, but they don't want to be all international population. In fact, they control very much the number of Chinese students that they will take into their schools. So the advantage for the schools is for them to have students that they are able to manage well and who will succeed. All these schools want their students to succeed. And that's sort of where we come in, because the schools, when they recruit students, they don't really know who they're going to be. It's very difficult working with some of the Chinese consultants who bring the students in. Much of the materials are not even correct when they bring them in. Many of the letters that they bring in of recommendation were actually written by the consultants, etc. But when they work with us, they understand that what they see is what they get. We actually work with the students very closely. We get to know them. And we're very candid with the schools as to their strengths and their weaknesses, and sort of really want to make a good fit. So that's what we do. We introduce only students that we know are a good fit for the school. The schools know that we will manage them, and so the schools will be glad to take a good look at our students when we introduce them to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, you've been very successful. You're doing a good job. And you know, part of the show is I really want to help other entrepreneurs be successful as well. What do you think is the secret of your success? If you could share something that would be helpful for other people watching.
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I think if you look at it, forming strategic partnerships with high quality individuals, high quality organizations, that's very, very important. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example.
Good.
We work very closely with one of the top secondary schools in China. It's called the Experimental High School attached to Beijing Normal University. Try saying that 3 times fast. But we have worked with them for several years. In fact, we were instrumental in helping them to set up their international division where they teach English primarily. And there are already actually people, students every year who are accepted by these Ivy League schools from there here in the United States. Mm-hmm. But only last year did we take it one step further. And we started to actually teach classes to their students on Saturday mornings. And those classes were so well accepted, well received, that this year we're expanding it from 30 students to 90.
Wow.
Now, last week I was in Beijing. I went and I asked the parents of the 7th grade students to come for a meeting to discuss this program. I was really surprised, Jack, when 600 people showed up for this meeting.
Wow.
And 354 students applied for our 90 spots. Mm-hmm. So now our team in Beijing is just scrambling to add some evening classes during the week so that we can accommodate more of these kids. But if you think about it, these students are good potential clients for us, but we wouldn't even know them if we didn't have this partnership with this school. And last week while I was in Beijing, I also signed an MOU with another great company to set up an American-style boarding school in China. Okay, so again, how those strategic partnerships are working. You know, I'm not necessarily a talented person, but even your viewers who are, I think they will find that if they're trying to do something on their own, they will not do it as well as if they find good quality people to work with. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's very important to success.
I agree with you, I agree with you. So one last question. Here you are, you and I have gray hair. Looking back at the younger version of you that just was getting into business and starting, if you could give advice from what you know now to that younger you, what would you say? Okay,
I think it would be probably one, to go start even sooner forming those strategic sort of partnerships. And another would be probably to start a little sooner in my year doing something that I've seen you say before, Jack, and I've heard many other people say, and that is follow your passion. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll give you an example. There was a boy, the first boy that we actually brought over from China and put into a school. He wasn't a good student at all. He didn't really study when he was in China. In those days, it wasn't so competitive. It was a lot easier to bring a student over to the United States and be accepted by a school. But he got into the school here. He was in high school for 3 years. This chubby little boy became physically fit, healthy, and he graduated 3rd in his class. Okay, and this is extreme difference, a huge transition from what he was in China. So think about it for a minute, what this boy, thinking about this boy does for my wife and I. Mm-hmm. And now multiply that by all the students that we've helped. I mean, it is just a huge thing to be able to feel that what you're doing is making a difference to somebody. And I think that if you're doing something like that, if what you're doing is your passion, then it is something that will be successful. I just wished I had sort of switched to this type of thing a little bit earlier in my career.
I hear you, I hear you. Very good. So if people want to find out about you and your work, where would they go? How do they find out?
Well, they can find us at our website, which is kemsley.org. And in fact, people who go on there now will actually be able to sign up and get a free chapter of the book that I helped you working with, Jack.
Right, The Soul of Success, which you've got a wonderful chapter in. Well, great. Kemsley.org.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, well, thanks for being on the show.
Well, thank you very much, Jack. Appreciate it.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this message.